Good afternoon to my viewers on the East Coast. Good morning to folks in the rest of the Western Hemisphere, and good evening to folks in Europe, and good very early morning once again to folks in the Pacific Rim. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you guys showing up to the Angry Astronaut for this particular topic. That, frankly, every time I put out anything on British spaceflight, usually I know that it's not going to generate a great deal of traffic. It's just how it tends to go. But at the same time, I look upon it as sort of my mission. I'm hoping that a few people will tune in that didn't tune in the last time, who, decided, what is all this British space flight stuff? Maybe I'll click on it this time, that sort of thing, as try to find out what this is all about. What am I all about when it comes to UK space flight? Now, I think very legitimately that the majority of folks who are into space flight look at SpaceX and everything they're doing and say, hey, this is what's exciting about space flight. Michael, thank you so much for your generous support. Deeply appreciate the super chat. By the way, it all this makes a big difference to the channel. Thanks very much indeed. Anton, thank you so much for your support. All of these things make a huge difference. I just reserved the vast majority of the places that I'm going to be staying in the UK. None of this is inexpensive, even though I've managed to find flats for $400 a week, which is pretty stinking cheap. To find a flat for $400 a week in the UK on a temporary basis. But that's been great. So I'll be staying in Cornwall, actually Devon. I will be staying just outside of Cardiff. I'm going to be staying just north of Edinburgh in Falkirk, and probably in York for the last week or in that vicinity. But I'm not sure about that last week. It could also be in London, theoretically. It depends on how things go. But anyway, some I can't be more excited, but a lot of people have got to, probably asking the question, why? I mean, why? Nobody else is doing this, right? Everybody in Europe that has any interest in space flight, that has a successful YouTube channel or relatively successful, they're on their way over to Boca Chica. Everybody's relocating to Boca, or they live in Cape Canaveral, or they live someplace like that. It's really, why the hell would I want to go to Britain? Well, it's because I feel that there is a lot happening there. Now, 10 years ago, the most exciting thing that was happening in, private British space flight in Great Britain was when Top Gear launched a Reliant Robin a few thousand meters up into the sky with solid rocket boosters and a fuel tank and all that, and watched it blow up. Yeah, it was the biggest thing to ever launch from Western Europe, that Reliant Robin. So all of that, of course, was what everybody looked upon as being very funny. It was incredibly popular. You look at that video on, look up Top Gear Space Shuttle, and it's going to have many, many, many views. People love it because it's funny, because the thing blew up, right? But it didn't. It actually managed to successfully take off. The SRBs successfully separated, and if the local rocket club that they had hired had actually had more time to work on it, they say that they could have gotten it to the Reliant Robin to at least separate from the rest of the ship. It wouldn't have glided back, because Reliant Robin would have dropped like a lift with a cable cut, as they put it at that time. But still, at the same time, neat stuff indeed. Yeah. By the way, there are I've got some very good friends over at Total Space Network who are going to Skyrora to take some footage for me here in the next few weeks. But I will be paying visit to a lot of the upcoming launch providers here in the United Kingdom. And what I find to be so interesting about British space flight is that they're not like developing into an innovative spaceflight industry. It's not like a bit by bit sort of thing. Oh, we'll start off with just basic rockets and eventually get to reusability. Instead, they're being innovative right off the bat. 5 pounds from HiQ. Thank you so much. The SLS got me thinking NASA likes to waste money. Do you think NASA should start building a telescope on the moon? Yeah, I do think so. More coverage, less. A radio telescope. Yeah, I think they should. I don't know if they actually will, but I think that they definitely should. It would get, yield all sorts of amazing results. Thank you, Stephen. Really do appreciate that. So, the British once again are starting off from a position of innovation. Black Arrow, for example, is looking to launch rockets from the ocean. And these are rockets that are significantly more powerful than what Rocket Lab is launching right now. To me, that's exciting. Skyrora, their first, not Skyrora, but Orbex, their first launch is going to have reusability built into the first stage. Reusability from launch one. That's impressive. That's exciting. Cool stuff. Michael, I saw a documentary of the now aborted British space program. They managed to launch a grand total of one rocket. They launched it after they closed down. Yeah, yeah. Really, the UK government has done a wretched job over all these decades of neglecting space flight. It's really, that's why I'm surprised that it's even happening. It shocks me that all of this is suddenly happening in a country that really had all these aborted efforts towards, proceeding towards space flight. And now all of a sudden they're doing some amazing things. Now, Skyrora, as far as the types of, the Skyrora XL rocket has roughly the same capabilities as the Rocket Lab Electron. So pretty cool. And it's going to be launching from Northern Scotland. I mean, we tune into Rocket Lab launches, right? So why aren't we, more interested in this? Plus, of course, Skyrora has the innovative space tug idea that they're going to be using to deorbit space junk, secondary missions, that sort of thing. Eco scene, that is a big deal. Pardon me? The Pathfinder mission for the space tug is to retrieve the Galileo satellite mission that was launched by the original Black Arrow half a century ago. Dar, thank you so much. The Stig stares at space flight with motionless approval. Yes, the Stig. He's the man, definitely. Whoever he is. So yeah, I mean, so that's one thing. I mean, obviously, Skyrora, you're looking at something similar to Rocket Lab, except with a space tug that has reignitable engines that's designed to carry out multiple missions. And part of their initiative is to deorbit more pieces of space junk than they put up into orbit. If they succeed in doing that, they'll be the first launch provider to ever do that. To after the mission's done, there will be less space junk up there than there was when they started. That's a big deal. Something else that I'm going to release a very short bulletin on tomorrow that I hope gets a little bit more attention because I'm going to be slamming on Jeff Bezos is the difference in philosophy as far as responsible constellations are concerned. By the way, that's one of the 10 topics that I talked about today was responsible constellations. OneWeb is being responsible about how they're deploying their constellations. They're already awarding millions of pounds to the British division of Astroscale to deorbit any dead satellites, any failed satellites in their constellation, which is so important to the future of LEO. And you know what is happening with Kuiper and Jeff Bezos? Well, they're not going to deorbit anything. They don't see a need in doing it. They say that we are our own deorbiting plan. Their philosophy is if one of our satellites fails, in other words, cannot deorbit itself, well, it'll eventually re-enter the atmosphere in about 10 years. So we'll have an unguided missile in orbit for 10 years. No big deal. I can't believe they actually said that in public. But they did. And that's how little they care about the future of LEO, which makes no sense because that's where they're going to make their damn money. You would think that they would have a lot more, have a lot more concern about this because they're putting out way more satellites than OneWeb ever will. but that's not what's happening. There was a statement of real shame about Black Arrow, which, by the way, it was a real shame. Successful mission. Yeah, it's a shame that Black Arrow isn't getting more help from UK Space Agency, but it doesn't have that much money. You could miss UK spending goes to the ESA. That's true. That is very true. Now, with Brexit, that may change things. The UK does spend money on the ESA, but one thing they're not spending money on is the development of new Ariane rockets. None of their effort, money, no jobs, no UK jobs or anything are going towards the development of Ariane. And I think that makes a big difference indeed. Where is the evolution in the space program? I see a lot of copy and paste. If we're talking about British space flight, where the innovation exists, obviously, is not only in the deorbiting sector, but also in terms of reusability from moment one. Not everybody does this. As a matter of fact, very few people go into it. But I mean, check out the video if you want to have a look at all of the things that we're talking about when it comes to innovation. And then as far as LEO responsibility and space debris cleanup, who sent up the most ambitious mission when it comes to LEO cleanup? It was Great Britain. They sent a whole package of different types of equipment up to the ISS to be tested to remove space debris. So that's where a lot of innovation is coming, and that is something that is not being duplicated by the United States. So yeah, Bezos says we're destroying the planet. Now let me help you out. Very good point, Matt, and it makes no sense to me. I mean, it's just very cavalier, this complete disregard for the safety of LEO. And OneWeb, a British company, has a very clear plan as to how they're going to address this issue in the future. And that's something I like very much. The ARIA legislation is where the investment is going to come. Thank you, Christopher. I appreciate you giving me some information on that. The investment is coming. There's no question about that. And even Skylon, something that everybody has talked about forever is well, this is never going to happen. The British have been working on this forever, but major investment is finally coming. The engine test facility was completed in 2021, and they're going to be looking at their first unmanned tests of this particular reusable space plane by 2025. Now, obviously, this is a very optimistic idea, but still, it's something they are working on. And if they are able to complete it, this will be something that nobody else has. Nobody has anything like Skylon. They're working on things like Skylon, some other agencies, but very, very few. A 100% reusable single stage vehicle. So many people have said that it's impossible to even create it. But at the same time, the British are working on it right now, and they've got the backing of organizations like Rolls-Royce, not a very poor company by any stretch of the imagination. I think British space companies could collaborate on Orbital Reef Project to provide arrangements on cleaning orbits from space debris. Absolutely, they could. They could send their equipment up to Orbital Reef to be deployed there. There are many possibilities. And by the way, Black Arrow, their sea launch capability is going to be fully scalable. That means that, of course, they'll start off with smaller satellites, although keep in mind the Black Arrow rocket has more than double the thrust of the Rocket Lab Electron. It's not small potatoes as far as small sat launches are concerned. So some pretty interesting stuff coming. And once again, if they are able to do that, they will be one of the very few companies that's ever attempted a sea launch. And that's definitely, a thing to be covered. I could go on and on about this topic, and it's why I'm going there. It's why I'm so interested. And because nobody else is covering it, or because very few people, I mean, we get it every now and then. Every now and then another channel will release something about Scottish spaceflight companies, and they'll release something about the UK and all that, but it doesn't come out that often. And for obvious reasons, not too many people watch it. And I understand why. On the surface of it, it doesn't sound all that damn exciting. But when it comes right down to it, it is exciting. There's lots of unique things coming out of Great Britain that simply isn't coming out of any place else. If you look at small sat launch providers in every other country, with the exception of Rocket Lab, the entire philosophy is expendable rockets using off the shelf materials most of the time. And you know who I'm talking about here. Astra, for example, look at them. Expendable rockets using off the shelf material, and you get to see what the results of these launches are. Consequently, there's no concern for reusability, no concern for unique and green forms of propellant and other sorts of fuels that Britain is embracing. And they're not the only ones. ABL is another example that's going to be launching from Scotland here soon. It's a company with a lot of interesting capabilities, but their rocket is fully expendable. Their rocket is using a lot of off the shelf stuff. The entire philosophy is let's get as many small sats into orbit as cheaply as possible, period. No other innovation aside from that. And that's something where the British are different. I was just told that according to data, the Astra rocket has spent more time going horizontal than vertical, which is how companies like Virgin Orbit handle things, but certainly not a company like Astra. That's a bit off. Astra is a stock market scam. It very well may be, and what troubles me especially is the amount of investment that they're getting, the amount of support they're getting from NASA, from the military, because the whole idea sounds really cool, right? We need a small sat thrown into orbit right now. We need a military satellite deployed right now. Well, there's Astra. Just toss the satellite on the rocket and we'll launch it tomorrow. That's a compelling notion, and I can see why they might be interested in it. But at the same time, the way they're doing it isn't really working. And I think it's pretty obvious as to why. They're going as cheap as they possibly can, because that's the whole business model, right? Deliver satellites into orbit as cheaply as possible. And as a result, you get what you pay for. And I think it's pretty obvious what's happening. Matthew, thank you so much. And I'd love to share a pint with you. Thanks so much for the £5. Still haven't figured out how to use Discord. Oh my Lord. I will post another open invitation on Patreon. Actually, my partner in crime's gonna go ahead and put a new posting on, and it'll be on Patreon, and also for the folks who are YouTube members. Just so you know, Patreon members, I do get a larger cut of less of it goes to Patreon than on the YouTube side, where a good chunk of it goes to them. Still, if you want to support me in any way at all, I'm deeply appreciative for it. And there are benefits in addition to getting some unique content. I'm doing early video releases now and 15% discount on all of my merchandise. And for those of you who watched my latest video on UK spaceflight, one of my supporters, guy who goes by the name of Darth Rust, created one of the most awesome pieces of merch I've ever seen in my life. The logo is astonishing for UK spaceflight. The entire length and breadth of everything that's going on with it, super cool. So in any event, that, by the way, is linked in the description if you're interested of both this video and also the one I just released. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Also, we're going to try to post it. So in any event, the link is in the description for this particular piece of merchandise. And by the way, I just ordered a shirt for myself as well. I'm going to be wearing it all over the UK. So yeah, so this is what drives me. This is why I have such a passion for it. I do love Britain, of course. I've loved Britain ever since I paid my first visit back in 1977. But at the same time, the more I research this country, the more I research what they're doing with spaceflight, the more I see how hard they're working to set themselves apart. Because if you just want to send up small sats for cheap, if you just want to do that, there are lots of options, and there are going to be more and more options as time goes on. However, if you want to send up your small sat and advertise that you're doing it in a responsible way, for example, you're launching with a company that's going to deorbit space junk after your satellite gets deployed, That's good press. That's a positive thing to say. Also, if the rocket that's launching your small sat is a carbon neutral rocket, which by the way, Orbex is going to be doing that. Skyroar is going to be doing that. I love what Skyroar is doing with Ecosine, by the way. That's awesome stuff. Waste plastic, all this stuff that's going into the oceans. Let's put it into rockets and burn it up there. What an awesome idea. Whoops, there's the logo, by the way, just popped up. Boy, I love it. Dorothy, outdid yourself. In there, of course, is Virgin Orbit. There's the Skyrora XL featured there. There's the Orbex rocket featured in there. There's also the Skylon space plane. There's OneWeb and their satellites. All of these amazing things coming out of Great Britain. And the only American company that's actually featured there is Virgin Orbit, although they are launching in a couple of months a number of different British satellites and other European satellites, by the way, into orbit. So once again, it qualifies as a European mission as far as I'm concerned. Plus, I'm also sincerely hoping that Sir Richard decides to open up a manufacturing facility for Launcher One in the UK once he sees just how successful all of this is. And also, it's not just about that, it's also about Sierra Space. The UK is opening up 3 horizontal space launch spaceports, 3 of them. In other words, airfields that are going to be used for horizontal launch. One of them already, Spaceport Cornwall, has been cleared as a legitimate landing site for the Dream Chaser. Consequently, what does this mean? Well, if Sierra Space wants to take some cargo up for the European Space Agency, if they want to, go ahead and bring up, or for any European clients, they can go up on a European rocket, on an Ariane rocket, for example, and then land at Spaceport Cornwall. None of the business has to go across the Atlantic. It really helps in terms of efficiency, in terms of logistics. There are lots of positives to doing things that way. And I can't wait, by the way, to watch Dream Chaser land at Spaceport Cornwall. That's going to be some amazing things. And that's just, like I say, one of 3 horizontal launch facilities. On top of that, geez, location, location, location. You have 2 spaceports being built right now in Scotland for polar launches. It's not easy to do a polar launch. It's not easy at all. Rocket Lab has a huge advantage in that regard because they are so close to the South Pole. So if you have rockets launching from Shetland or launching from Scotland, obviously easier access to polar orbits. Plus, beautiful, beautiful places to launch from. My God, I can't imagine covering a launch from places like that. And it's not like it's going to be tiny, little small scale launches. It's going to be at least as impressive as anything Rocket Lab does. And some of these rockets will be even more powerful, especially the ABL rocket that will be launching from Saxavord Space, or not Saxavord Spaceport, from Northern Scotland. So really cool stuff happening there. I think newsworthy. I think worth covering. And so that's why I keep plowing out this content, even though I take a big financial hit every time I do it, simply because I get about half the views, or maybe even less than that I get on an average video. But I'm a stubborn SOB. I really am, for anybody who knows me. And instead of just giving up, and really maybe I should listen closer to what the viewers are telling me and stop doing this, but I don't. I'm just too stubborn. And so, and plus, I really think that this stuff is newsworthy. And I think that there are still a significant number of you that want to see it. Please share these videos, distribute them as widely as you possibly can. Let people know that if you enjoy spaceflight, you're going to enjoy this. It's cool stuff. Once again, another company that I'm visiting, I could go on forever, but another company I'm visiting is Space Forge. That's going to be a really amazing thing. And they are launching in just a couple of months a reusable satellite that builds new types of alloys in microgravity, new types of medical technology in microgravity, all the things we talk about doing on space stations. They can do it in a reusable satellite for a fraction of the cost. Nobody else is doing this. Nobody else has this business model. Again, a unique idea coming from the UK. Love it. And that's why I want to cover it. Achieving 100K soon. I certainly hope so, Marina, because after all, I've got my 100K challenge that I've made a commitment to. And now that Starship has gotten approval to go from the FAA, I'm in a little bit more trouble at the moment. I may indeed end up losing this challenge. We'll see how things go with Starship. Elon's already talking about being ready to launch Starship in July. I know he's not going to have everything done environmentally to get it launched by then, though. There is a list as long as Godzilla's arm to get this to do everything that they're supposed to be doing. Supax, thank you so much. Really enjoyed. Thank you. I appreciate the fact that you like the content, and I'm glad. Thanks for the feedback. Like I say, I know that there are a lot of you that do want to see this, and yeah, sure, it may not be the same number as I have on some of my other videos. That's okay. I can deal with that because I think that it needs to be reported. I think it's important and I think it's exciting. And when I go to Britain and I get more and more information about this, these people are very excited to meet with me, and I'm very excited to meet with them. I think that we are going to get some really cool insights. One that I'm really looking forward to, or one that I'm pushing really hard for, are the folks who are designing the Sabre air-breathing rocket engines for Skylon. That's something that I really want to get in on. So well, guess what? My partner in crime in York just told me that we could probably get an in there. So there you go. Talk about a unique technology. Air breathing engines until you get to Mach 5. Then they transition over to hydrogen and oxygen rocket engines that take it the rest of the way. And this is a spacecraft capable of taking up twice the payload that Cargo Dragon can to the ISS or any other space station. So if you're talking about collaborating with Orbital Reef, the Skylon will be able to double what Cargo Dragon can, and also what Dream Chaser can. That's pretty impressive. If they can get this thing going, it's going to be formidable. A lot of people say that a single stage orbital vehicle is not possible. We'll see whether or not they can prove them wrong, because the technology looks pretty impressive. But once again, I'm not an aerospace engineer, so it's hard to say for certain. But I am deeply grateful to all of you for tuning in to check this out. It is beyond exciting to report on this sort of thing. I used to work there quite a lot. I'm trying to get it. Where did you work? So I'm sorry, I may have missed your previous posting. But if you could clarify that, that would be great. But in any event, the fact that so many of you who have tuned in today, the fact that so many of you have thrown me super chats and supported what I'm trying to do suggests to me that this is something you do want to see. This is something that a substantial number of my viewers definitely want to see, and that's amazing stuff. Watch the Three Rocketeers documentary about Skylon on YouTube. I will. I definitely want to check that out. I'd never even heard of it. Definitely need to check that out. Once again, Skylon, everybody talks about this thing as if, this is this big pie in the sky dream that the UK has been working on forever and it's never going to happen. It is kind of the UK's SLS. But the difference is, obviously the UK has invested a lot of money in it. It hasn't gone too far yet, but it's 100% reusable. It's extremely innovative as opposed to SLS that uses old established technology. Guru, thank you so much for your support. Have you covered work being done on balloon parachute re-entry tech? I look forward to you know something, actually, I have a feeling that Orbex is going to be using kind of a balloon parachute re-entry for their first stage on their rocket. We'll see, because I don't know. They haven't given away a lot about how they're going to reuse the first stage of that rocket. But you know what? We're going to find out soon, because they are launching within months. I'll tell you. I talk about the South Korea space program. South Korea isn't, I think they're worth talking about, but I don't see reusability in South Korea. I don't see cleaning up LEO in South Korea. there's a lot of things that I don't see yet. I see a promising and developing space program in South Korea that, has had some success recently, and good on them. But I don't see anything unique. I do see unique things in Britain. Glenn, thank you so much. Really do appreciate your support. Deeply appreciate it. Once again, though, I do respect people who think that this stuff isn't all that exciting. I get it. I get it. It's not 100 tons to LEO. It's not taking 100 tons to Mars. I get all that. But if it's about cleaning up LEO and cleaning up all the space junk that we have in orbit that could sabotage our future in space and keep Starship from going anywhere, that's important. That's incredibly important. And Britain is taking the lead on this. I don't see why. I don't understand why they're taking the lead as opposed to countries like the US, organizations like SpaceX. Why aren't they taking the lead? But it's Britain that's taking the lead. And for that, they should be recognized and they deserve to be reported on. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. If not this war, Ukraine could collaborate with Britain in space. I believe when the war ends, I keep thinking that will end soon, Britain will enjoy collaborating with the Ukrainian Space Agency. Marina, I've got some good news for you. Skyrora has facilities in Ukraine and they're still working right now. I can't say where they are. I can't say what they're doing, but I can say that they are continuing to work on what they've committed to work on in conjunction with their colleagues in Scotland. Beyond exciting, given the fact that they're doing this in the middle of a damn war. Matt, man, thank you for getting the word out on the UK space industry, and it's a big part of what I'm trying to do here, obviously. A private crusade, if you will, and maybe it's a lost cause, who knows? But given the feedback that I've gotten today, given the fact that I think that there's a lot of you who do tune into this stuff, I'm encouraged. I think that it's something to continue on. It's something that I intend to continue on, especially after I make my trip to Britain. So until more people start to understand that what's happening over in Europe is exciting, it's relevant, it's important to the future of our exploring the solar system and expanding as a species into a multiplanetary civilization. Until that moment comes, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.